You ever notice how some of your deepest connections happen in complete silence? Like, you're sitting next to someone, nobody's saying a word, and somehow it feels more real than any conversation you've had all week. Meanwhile, you can spend an entire dinner party talking nonstop and walk away feeling like you didn't actually connect with anyone. Weird, right? Here's the thing. There's actually a hidden psychology behind why silence sometimes speaks louder than words, and why your brain trusts quiet moments more than it trusts talking. So let's talk about the people who feel this most intensely, because not everyone experiences silence the same way. First, there's the person who's been performing all day. Maybe it's you. You've been on since morning, answering questions, making small talk, pretending to care about Karen's weekend plans. Every conversation feels like you're reading from a script you didn't write. You're nodding, you're smiling, you're saying all the right things. But internally, you're exhausted. Then you finally get home, close the door, and the silence hits you like a warm blanket. No performance required, no script to follow, just you and the quiet. And suddenly, for the first time all day, you feel like yourself again. That's because conversation, especially superficial conversation, requires a constant cognitive load. Your brain is monitoring tone, reading faces, filtering what you say, managing expectations. Silence removes all of that. It's honest because there's nothing to filter, nothing to perform. You're not pretending to be interested, you're not crafting responses, you're just existing. And sometimes existing feels more truthful than explaining yourself ever could. Then there's the person who's tired of being misunderstood. You know this one. They say something genuine, something vulnerable, and it gets twisted. Someone takes it the wrong way. Or worse, they don't take it seriously at all. So over time, they learn that words are liabilities. Every sentence is a chance for miscommunication, for someone to project their own stuff onto what you're trying to say. But silence? Silence can't be misquoted. It can't be taken out of context. When you're silent, people can't twist your meaning because you haven't given them ammunition. There's a psychological defense mechanism here called selective mutism, though that's usually extreme. But on a milder level, people withdraw into silence as a form of self-protection. It's not that they don't want to connect, it's that they've learned connection through words can backfire. So they retreat into the safety of quiet, where at least they won't be misunderstood. Maybe it's not the healthiest coping mechanism, but it makes sense, doesn't it? If every time you speak, someone distorts what you meant, eventually you stop speaking. Another type is the person who's simply exhausted by empty words. They've had too many shallow conversations, too many, hey, how are you exchanges, where nobody actually wants to know how you are. They're surrounded by people who talk a lot but say very little. And somewhere along the way, they realize that most conversation is just noise. So when they find someone they can sit with in silence, someone who doesn't need to fill every gap with pointless chatter, it feels like relief. It feels honest because silence doesn't pretend to be something it's not. It doesn't dress itself up as intimacy when it's really just distraction. There's actual research on this, studies showing that people in long-term relationships often report feeling closest during shared silence, not during conversation. Why? Because silence requires comfort. You can only be quiet with someone when you're not anxiously trying to prove yourself, when you're not worried they'll leave if you're not entertaining enough. Silence is the ultimate vulnerability. It says, I trust you enough to not need words right now. But here's the twist. There's also the person who uses silence as a shield, not a connection. They're not quiet because they feel comfortable. They're quiet because they're hiding. Maybe they're afraid if they speak, they'll reveal too much. Maybe they've got secrets or shame or parts of themselves they don't want you to see. So they stay silent, and it feels honest to them because at least they're not lying. But the thing is, silence can be just as dishonest as words when it's used to avoid truth. You can sit in silence with someone and still be completely disconnected if you're using that quiet to build walls instead of bridges. This is the paradox of silence. It can be the most authentic thing in the world or the most evasive, depending on why you're choosing it. And then there's the person who's simply comfortable with silence because their internal world is rich enough. They don't need constant conversation because they're not bored with themselves. They're thinking, observing, processing. For them, silence isn't empty, it's like full. It's honest because it reflects what's actually going on inside their mind, rather than the curated, edited version they'd have to present in conversation. Psychologists call people like this internally referenced rather than externally referenced. They don't need external validation or stimulation to feel okay. Their sense of self comes from within, so silence doesn't threaten them. It nourishes them. So which type are you? Are you the one who's been performing and needs silence to drop the mask? The one who's been misunderstood and finds safety in not speaking? The one who's tired of shallow words and craves authentic quiet? Or maybe you're the one who uses silence to hide, or the one who's simply comfortable in your own internal world. Here's what's fascinating. Silence feels more honest than conversation sometimes because honesty isn't always about what you say. It's about what you don't have to say. It's about the moments where pretending stops and existing begins, where you're not managing impressions or filtering thoughts. You're just there. And maybe that's the most truthful thing any of us can offer. So next time you're sitting in comfortable silence with someone, or you're alone and the quiet feels like coming home, remember, you're not missing out on connection. You might be experiencing the realest version of it.